Everybody, Alexios here, and welcome to another episode of Feedback Exercise Edition. And this time I want to talk about the squat. Tell you what I know about it in the hopes that if there's something I'm missing, if there's a gap in my knowledge, maybe you can massage my ignorance, please. And then also, if you don't know anything, if you're a beginner, maybe I can enlighten you. Okay, so let's get right into it, shall we? Now, the first thing you learn about the squat is this. It works your anterior chain, mostly. So muscles in front of your body. It doesn't work your posterior chain very much, say your glutes or your hamstrings. It works basically your quads. Okay, with that out of the way, let's talk about what beginners complain about most when they do the squat. Now, the biggest complaint I know of that beginners have about the squat is knee pain. They'll do the squat and their knees will hurt. And the main reason for that is, of course, bad technique. Now, everybody knows what the squat essentially is. Kind of self-explanatory. You stand up, squat down, you get up. That's the squat, right? But if you're doing it with bad technique, you can injure your knees. And this is the bad technique beginners will make that will cause their knee pain. They'll do the squat and they'll bring their knees way forward like this. And the reason why that'll hurt your knees is because you're bringing your knees forward, okay, which means your body is following your knees, and they're lowest down, which means you're putting all the weight of your body on your knee. And your knee is a joint. It's not a muscle. It is not designed to carry a load. It's just meant to hinge the muscles that will be carrying the load. So you don't want your knee in front where it's bearing the brunt of the force of gravity. You want it in a neutral position, which is basically 90 degrees. You want to keep it as close to 90 degrees as possible so that it's just hinging the muscles and the muscles are taking the load, okay? Now, I'll talk about how you squat at 90 degrees in a second, but before that, I want to talk about something else, and that is when you do the squat, how your knees tend to cave in. Now, if you're a beginner, you'll notice when you start doing the squat, you want to keep your knees nice, shoulder width apart, kind of externally rotate the hips, keep it nice form, right? And what will happen is, as you get tired, your knees will start caving in. And that's bad technique, obviously. It's bad form. You're putting your knees in a bad position, in a weakened position. You're internally rotating your hips. It's not great. You want everything to be nice, strongly, externally rotated. And so, two things you do to avoid that mistake. The one is, if you're really weak and you're noticing from the very beginning your knees are just caving in, just narrow how far apart you're putting your legs. Just bring them further in so that you have less to collapse inwards. And then the other technique is this. As you get tired, because usually you keep your foot flat on the floor, right? As you get tired, you actually want to start leaning on the outside of your feet. You want to focus on leaning on the outside of your feet, and that will automatically push your knees out, okay? So you can do the squat with better form. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's talk about doing the squat at 90 degrees. Now, beginners, when they do the squat at 90 degrees, if you tell them to do it, this is what will happen invariably in the beginning. They'll come down, and they'll immediately fall backwards. And the reason for that is twofold. They don't know how to hip hinge, and as a consequence, essentially, they don't know where their back should be in space. Because when people say do the squat, they also say keep your back straight. And beginners will interpret that to mean keep it perpendicular to the floor. But if your knees are staying at 90 and all your weight is coming back, you can't stay perpendicular to the floor without collapsing backwards. All your weight is unevenly distributed. And so what you need to do is you need to hip hinge. You need to actually bring your hips forward so that your back follows, so that the weight is distributed evenly. And here's a good technique to work on the hip hinge. And this is something I learned off the internet, say from channels like Athlean or Fitness FAQs. Really great, awesome fitness channels that if you want to educate yourself about this stuff, you should totally watch. But here's a technique I learned. So you take your hands and you put them in your crotch area. Don't get too comfortable. Just put them in there and focus. Try to make your hands disappear into your crotch area. If you do this, and you come back and you keep your knees at 90 and you're noticing your hands aren't disappearing, you're not hinging enough. You need to make them disappear. You need to really come forward. And you're focusing on the relationship between your chest and your hips. You want this relationship to not change whether you're coming forward or you're straight, right? So you're not bending from the spine as you come forward. You're bending from the hips, okay? You're coming forward. See how the position is staying the same. That's something you want to focus on. Okay, what else? Let's talk about range of motion. How low can you go when you do the squat? Now, essentially, this is the rule. You can go as low as you can as long as you're not compromising your form. That's the fundamental rule. So, a good way to notice if you are compromising your form or not is whether or not you're butt winking. And the butt wink is essentially this. When you come down and you get low enough that your lower spine actually comes in, tapers in, your butt kind of caves inwards, okay? Tapers down. Try it again. Come down. See how it's nice and up? Eventually, as you come down, it'll collapse downwards. And Basically, that's just putting your spine in a more compromised position, a weakened position. So if you're, say, doing heavy weights, you kind of want to avoid that. I don't want to get into exactly why the butt wink occurs. I'm not educated enough about that yet. But essentially, it's kind of a, as far as I understood, it's more of a hip strength mobility issue than anything else. Okay, so that's what you want to look out for. Now, how about when you come up? What do you do when you come up? Now, a lot of people, when they come up from the squat, they'll come down, they'll come up, and they'll just chill here. They'll relax, right? You're just standing. Like, your muscles aren't really working at this point. So how do you avoid that so that you're not resting every time you come up from the squat and then forced to do more and more reps and just, bore yourself to death? You want to actively squeeze when you come up. You want to squeeze your glutes. You want to squeeze your quads. You want to make sure that you're firm. You're not resting at the top. And you come down fast. Boom, firm. Now, disclaimer here, if you have heavy weights on when you're doing the squat, you don't want to sit too much in this arched, very tall position here because it's not necessary. It's just extra weight on your spine, compression on your spine you don't need because you have weights on. Like, you're not resting. You're carrying a heavier load than just your body, so it's not necessary. And then also, one more thing about the knees. If you watch professional squat, you will notice that as they come down, their knees will come forward a little bit. They actually will come forward a little bit. But what you're focusing on is not bringing them way forward. It's kind of natural sometimes for the knees to come forward a little bit. You just want to make sure they're as close to 90 degrees as possible in order to make sure that most of the force of gravity is not acting directly upon the knees. Okay, I think that's all I know about the squat. Yeah, that's it. That is the full package. Man. Let me know if I forgot anything. If there's something I'm missing, not covering it that I should be, if there's a technique that I'm misunderstanding. But in the meantime, as far as I know, that's good stuff to keep in mind. Like and comment and share and subscribe and do other stuff too. It's very important. Do other stuff. Don't just do that. There's other things you can do too. You should eat sometimes. You should eat. You should sleep. That's also important. If you want to recover from exercising, you should sleep a lot. You know that. Why am I telling you this? Anyway, I'm going to hang up now. Let me know what you thought. Okay, bye.